Lisa Martinez stepped off the transport ship and looked up at the biggest building she had ever seen. The Galactic Military Academy stretched high into the orange sky of Kepler 442b, its walls made of some kind of crystal that sparkled in the alien sunlight. She had dreamed of this moment for years, but now that she was here, her heart was beating fast. "Holy cow," whispered Jake Miller, the boy from California who stood next to her. "Look at the size of that place." Lisa nodded, but stayed quiet. She had learned long ago that actions spoke louder than words. At 19 years old, she was the youngest human ever accepted into the academy. She had earned her place by scoring perfect marks on every test Earth's military could throw at her. Fighting, strategy, survival skills. She had beaten everyone else who tried. The other human cadets gathered around their group. There were 12 of them total, picked from millions of people back on Earth. Amy Foster from New York kept fixing her uniform. Mike Davis from Chicago cracked his knuckles. Each of them had been the best of the best in their home countries. Now they were just tiny specks in a galaxy full of aliens who had been fighting wars for thousands of years. "Welcome to your new home," said Commander Brooks, the Earth officer who had brought them here. She was a tough woman with gray hair and scars on her hands. "Remember, you are not just representing yourselves. You represent all of humanity. The galaxy is watching to see if we belong here." Lisa felt the weight of those words. For the first time in history, humans were being allowed to train alongside alien warriors. Some species had fought against letting humans join. They said Earth people were too weak, too soft, too young as a species. This exchange program was humanity's chance to prove them wrong. A loud horn sounded across the academy grounds. Thousands of alien cadets began moving toward the main courtyard. Lisa had studied pictures of different alien species, but seeing them in person was different. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, others on 4 or 6 or 8. Some had fur, others had scales or shells. A few even floated in the air using wings or strange technology. "Look at that one," Amy whispered, pointing at a creature that looked like a walking tree with eyes. "Stop staring," Lisa said quietly. "We need to show respect." The human group followed the crowd into the courtyard. This space was huge, big enough to hold a football stadium. Alien cadets filled the area, their different colors and shapes creating a wild rainbow of life. Lisa noticed that many of them were looking at the humans with curiosity. Some seemed friendly, others looked doubtful. A deep voice boomed across the courtyard, speaking in a language that sounded like rocks grinding together. Small devices attached to each cadet's uniform began translating the words into their native languages. For the humans, the voice became clear English. "Cadets, you will now meet your commander. General Vorthok of the Zenthari Empire has led this academy for 20 years. He has trained warriors who have conquered star systems and defended entire worlds. You will show him the respect he deserves." The crowd fell silent as a giant figure appeared on the raised platform at the front of the courtyard. General Vorthok was the biggest living thing Lisa had ever seen. He stood 8 feet tall and had 4 arms covered in what looked like natural armor. His skin was dark gray and seemed as hard as stone. 4 eyes glowed red in his massive head, and when he opened his mouth, Lisa could see rows of sharp teeth. "New cadets," the general's voice rumbled through the translators. "You come from 47 different worlds. You think you are warriors. You think you are strong. You are wrong." He began walking along the platform, his 4 arms moving as he spoke. Each step made a sound like thunder. "I have seen warriors from every corner of the galaxy. I have trained the greatest fighters in known space. Only the strongest survive my training. The weak are sent home in shame. The very weak are sent home in boxes, several alien cadets shifted nervously. Lisa noticed that even the biggest, most dangerous-looking aliens seemed afraid of the general. This year, we have a new species joining. U.S., General Vorthik continued. His 4 red eyes swept across the courtyard until they found the small group of humans. Humans from the planet Earth. They claimed they deserved to stand among galactic warriors. The general's mandibles clicked together in what Lisa somehow knew was laughter. "Look at them," he said, pointing one of his 4 arms at the human cadets. Small, weak, soft skin that tears easily. Only 2 arms. Only 2 eyes. They have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. They are children playing at being soldiers. Lisa felt anger building in her chest, but she kept her face blank. Her father had taught her that emotions were fine to feel, but showing them at the wrong time could get you killed. She had learned to control her reactions through years of martial arts training and growing up in a military family. These humans will learn what it means to be real warriors, General Vorthik declared. They will learn through pain, through defeat, through humiliation. Most will quit and return to their little planet. The few who remain will be broken down and rebuilt into something worthy of serving in the Galactic Defense Force. The generals. Gaze lingered on Lisa longer than the others. She met his stare directly, not challenging him, but not backing down either. Something about her calm confidence seemed to irritate him. "You will all be given room assignments and schedules," the general continued. "Training begins at dawn. Those who cannot keep up will be removed. Those who show weakness will be punished. Those who question my methods will regret it." As the crowd began to disperse, Lisa heard alien cadets talking in their various languages. The translators picked up fragments of their conversations. Many were betting on how long the humans would last. Some gave them a week. Others thought they would quit after their first day of training. "Let them talk," Jake whispered to Lisa as they walked toward the dormitory building. "They have every right to doubt us," Lisa replied. "We have to prove ourselves through our actions, not our words." But as they walked, Lisa was already studying the other cadets. She watched how they moved, how they interacted with each other, how they responded to authority. Her father had always told her that knowledge was the most powerful weapon a soldier could carry. The more she understood about her new environment, the better she could adapt to it. The dormitory hallways were filled with alien cadets settling into their rooms. Lisa found her assigned quarters and discovered she would be sharing the space with 3 aliens. One looked like a giant insect, another resembled a walking fish, and the third seemed to be made of living metal. "Hello," Lisa said simply as she entered the room. "I am Lisa Martinez from Earth." The 3 aliens looked at her with expressions she could not read. After a moment, the insect-like creature spoke. "I am Zixthara of the Mollusk Collective. This is Krieg of the Aquatic Territories, and this is Unit 47 of the Synthetic Alliance." "It is good to meet you all," Lisa said, setting down her small bag of belongings. She could feel them watching her as she unpacked. They were probably wondering what this small human was doing in their room, in their academy, in their galaxy. Lisa did not blame them for their doubts. She had doubts too. But she also had something else, determination that burned like fire in her chest. Tomorrow, the real test would begin. 3 weeks had passed since Lisa arrived at the academy, and every day had been harder than the last. The training was designed to break cadets down completely before building them back up. Most of the exercises were created for aliens with natural armor, extra limbs, or bodies that could heal faster than humans. Lisa woke up every morning with new bruises and cuts, but she never complained. While other human cadets struggled with the physical demands, she found ways to adapt. When the obstacle course was too high for her shorter legs, she learned to use momentum and technique instead of raw strength. When the combat drills were too fast for human reflexes, she studied the patterns and learned to predict what would happen next. "How do you do it?" asked Amy Foster during their evening meal. The girl from New York looked exhausted, her uniform torn from the day's training. "I can barely keep up with the running exercises, and you make it look easy." Lisa looked around the dining hall filled with alien cadets. They ate strange foods that glowed or moved on their plates. The humans had been given special meals that would not poison them, but even the safe food tasted terrible. "I do not make it look easy," Lisa said quietly. "I just do not show how hard it is." "But why?" asked Mike Davis, the boy from Chicago. His left arm was in a sling from a training accident. "Nobody expects us to be as strong as these aliens." "I expect it," Lisa replied. "We are here to prove that humans belong in this galaxy. Every time we show weakness, we give them reasons to send us home." Jake Miller nodded in agreement. "Lisa is right. Did you hear what that lizard creature said yesterday? He told his friends that humans would all be gone within a month." Lisa had heard worse comments than that. In the hallways, alien cadets would whisper about the weak humans who needed special treatment. Some made jokes about how fragile human bones were. Others questioned why such a primitive species had been allowed into the academy at all. The hardest part was not the physical training or the cruel comments. It was General Vorthik. Every day, he found new ways to single out the human cadets. He would make them carry extra weight during marches. He would pair them against the strongest alien opponents during combat practice. He would assign them to the most dangerous training exercises. "Humans are weak," the general would say during his daily speeches. "They break easily. They cannot adapt. They are a waste of space in this academy." Lisa had learned to tune out his words, but she could see the effect they had on her fellow humans. Amy had started crying herself to sleep. Mike talked about quitting every day. Even Jake, who was usually optimistic, seemed to be losing hope. On the 22nd day of training, Lisa found herself in the gravity chamber for combat practice. The room could increase the weight of gravity, making everything feel heavier and harder. Today, the gravity was set to twice what humans were used to on Earth. Today, we will see how humans fight when they cannot rely on their home planet's weak gravity, General Vorthik announced to the watching cadets. Lisa was paired against a Krillian named X9. The Krillians were known throughout the galaxy as deadly fighters. They had razor-sharp claws that could cut through metal, reflexes faster than a human eye could follow, and natural armor that could stop bullets. X9 was bigger than Lisa and had been training for combat since he was a child. His people were born warriors who lived for battle. As he faced Lisa in the combat circle, his claws extended and his yellow eyes glowed with excitement. "This will be quick," someone in the crowd said. "The human will be lucky to last 10 seconds, said another. Lisa stood in the center of the circle, her hands empty and her stance relaxed. She had studied the Krillian fighting style during her weeks at the academy. They were fast and strong, but they relied on their natural weapons and armor. They were not used to fighting opponents who could think faster than they could move. "Begin," General Vorthik commanded. X9 lunged forward with incredible speed, his claws aimed at Lisa's throat. To the watching aliens, it looked like the human was about to be killed. But Lisa had been expecting this exact attack. She stepped to the side at the last possible moment, letting the Krillian's momentum carry him past her. As he stumbled, trying to regain his balance, Lisa grabbed his extended arm and used a technique her father had taught her. She twisted his wrist and elbow in opposite directions, using the joints against themselves. The Krillian's natural armor was strong, but his joints were still vulnerable. Lisa applied pressure to exactly the right spot, and X9 found himself unable to use his claws. His superior strength meant nothing when his arm was locked in a position that would break if he struggled. Impossible, someone whispered from the crowd. Lisa maintained the hold, keeping the X9 controlled, but not injured. She could have broken his arm easily, but that was not the point. The point was to show skill, not cruelty. Do you yield? Lisa asked calmly. X-9 struggled for a moment, his pride warring with his pain. Finally, he tapped the ground with his free hand, the universal signal for surrender. The combat circle fell silent. No one had expected the human to win, especially not so quickly and cleanly. Lisa released her opponent and helped him to his feet, showing the respect that one warrior gives to another. Good fight, she said simply. X9 looked at her with new respect. You are not what I expected, human. From the observation deck, General Vorthik watched with growing anger. His 4 hands were clenched into fists, and his red eyes burned with rage. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were weak. They were supposed to be broken and humiliated, not winning fights against superior species. Lucky move, the general growled, his voice carrying across the chamber. Anyone can get lucky once. Lisa looked up at him, her expression calm, but her muscles still ready for action. It was not luck, General. It was technique. Technique? The general's mandibles clicked with what might have been laughter. You think your primitive fighting methods can compare to the combat arts of the galaxy's greatest warriors? I think. Every species has something to learn from every other species, Lisa replied. That is why we are here, is it not? To learn from each other? The general's 4 eyes narrowed. This human was showing him disrespect in front of the entire academy. She was challenging his authority with her calm confidence and her refusal to be intimidated. You will learn your place, human, he said quietly, his voice carrying a promise of future punishment. You will learn that there is an order to things in this galaxy, and your species is at the bottom of it. Lisa said nothing, but she met his gaze steadily. She had faced bullies before, and she knew that showing fear would only make things worse. The general was angry because she had proven that his assumptions about humans were wrong. That anger would lead to more challenges, more tests, more attempts to break her spirit. But Lisa had been raised by people who taught her never to back down from what was right. Her father had been a soldier who fought for people who could not fight for themselves. Her mother had been a nurse who healed anyone who needed healing, regardless of who they were or where they came from. She would not dishonor their memory by giving up now. As the combat practice ended and the cadets began to file out of the chamber, Lisa noticed something different in the way the aliens looked at her. Some still seemed doubtful, but others watched her with curiosity. A few even nodded respectfully as she passed. That was incredible, Jake said as they walked back to their dormitory. I have never seen anything like that. You used his own strength against him, Amy added, her voice filled with amazement. How did you know that would work? Lisa thought about how to explain it. Every fighter has weaknesses, even the strongest ones. Sometimes the bigger they are, the easier it is to find those weaknesses. You just have to be willing to look for them. But even as she spoke, Lisa knew that her victory had come with a cost. General Vorthik would not forget this embarrassment. He would find ways to make her pay for showing that humans were not as weak as he claimed. She was right. The next morning, she found a message waiting for her. She was to report to the general's private training chamber immediately after breakfast. The message was brief, but Lisa understood its meaning. The real test was about to begin. Lisa stood outside General Vorthik's private training chamber, her heart beating steadily in her chest. The message had been clear. Report immediately after breakfast. She had eaten quickly and made her way through the academy's crystal corridors. To reach this door, the chamber was smaller than the main training areas, but somehow felt more dangerous. Through the transparent walls, Lisa could see weapons from dozens of different worlds mounted on display. Scorch marks covered the floor from years of brutal training sessions. This was where the general conducted what he called corrective instruction. Lisa knocked on the doorframe and waited. "Enter," came the deep voice from inside. She stepped into the chamber and came to attention. General Vorthik stood in the center of the room, his forearms crossed and his red eyes fixed on her. Without his usual audience of cadets, he seemed even more massive and intimidating. "Cadet Martinez," he said, beginning to circle her slowly. "Yesterday you embarrassed a member of a superior species. You made other cadets think that humans might actually be worth something." Lisa kept her eyes forward and her voice steady. "General, I was following orders to participate in combat training. I did my best as instructed." "Your best?" The general's mandibles clicked with anger. "You humiliated Vex-9 in front of the entire academy. You made him look weak. You made his entire species look weak. I defeated him in fair combat, General." "He fought well. Fair combat?" General Vorthik's voice rose. "There is nothing fair about a primitive human defeating a Krillian warrior. It goes against the natural order of things." The general continued to circle Lisa, his heavy footsteps echoing in the small chamber. She could feel his anger building, like a storm, but she remained calm. Her father had taught her that fear was a choice, and she chose not to be afraid. "You see, human," the general continued, "the galaxy has an order. The strong rule, the weak serve. The Xanthari have conquered entire star systems because we understand this truth. The Krillians are feared across 3 sectors because they accept their place as warriors. Every species knows where they belong." Lisa said nothing, but she listened carefully. The general was revealing more about his thinking than he probably intended. "Then humans appear," he continued, his voice growing more agitated. "A species that has never left their home system. A species with no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. Yet somehow, your leaders convinced the Galactic Council that you deserve to be here. The Council decided that all species should have the chance to prove themselves," Lisa replied carefully. "The Council was wrong." The general's voice boomed off the walls. "You do not belong here. You are too weak, too soft, too naive. You think you can change things, but you cannot. You are just another species that needs to learn its place." "General." Vorthik stopped in front of Lisa, his massive form looming over her. His 4 eyes burned with anger and something else, fear. Fear that his ordered universe might not be as stable as he believed. "You will learn humility, human," he said quietly. "You will learn that there are consequences for stepping out of line. You will learn to respect your superiors." Lisa met his gaze calmly. "I respect all beings who earn that respect through their actions, General." The words hung in the air between them. To General Vorthik, they were a direct challenge to his authority. To Lisa, they were simply the truth as she understood. "You dare to judge me?" The general's voice was dangerously quiet. "You think you can decide who deserves respect?" "I think respect is earned, not demanded," Lisa replied. That was the moment General Vorthik's control snapped. In his culture, might made right. The strong took what they wanted, and the weak submitted or were crushed. This small human was refusing to submit, and he could not tolerate it. Without warning, his primary right arm swept down in a vicious backhand aimed at Lisa's face. The blow was designed to split her lip, bruise her cheek, and most importantly, teach her that he was in control. But Lisa had been expecting something like this. She had seen the anger building in the general's eyes, had noticed the way his muscles tensed before he struck. Her father had taught her to read the signs of violence before it happened, not as the massive alien hand approached her face. Lisa's training took over. Her body moved automatically, following patterns she had practiced thousands of times. She stepped slightly to the side, just far enough to avoid the full force of the blow, while staying close enough to counterattack. Her left hand caught the general's wrist as it passed, her fingers finding the exact pressure points she had studied during her weeks at the academy. Her right hand pushed against his elbow joint, using his own momentum and strength against him. The biomechanics were simple but effective. The general's arm was extended and off balance. Lisa applied pressure in exactly the right direction, using leverage instead of raw strength. The Zenthari's natural armor was strong, but his joints were still vulnerable to properly applied force. The crack echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. General Vorthic's wrist snapped in 4 places, the bones breaking cleanly under the stress. The 8-foot warrior dropped to his knees, his other 3 arms clutching at the injured limb. A sound escaped his throat that was part roar, part whimper. He had never experienced pain like this before. In his species, such precise joint manipulation was unknown. Their fighting style relied on strength and natural weapons, not the careful application of leverage and anatomy. Lisa stepped back and came to attention, her breathing controlled and her expression calm. The entire sequence had taken exactly 4 seconds from start to finish. "General," she said quietly, "you struck a cadet without provocation. I responded with appropriate defensive measures." General Vorthic looked up at her through eyes filled with pain and shock. This was impossible. Humans were weak. They were supposed to be helpless against superior species. Yet this small female had just broken him with her bare hands. You attacked me," he gasped, still clutching his shattered wrist. "I defended." "Myself," Lisa corrected. "There is a difference." The general tried to stand, but the pain drove him back to his knees. His injured arm hung at an unnatural angle, and he could see bone fragments pressing against his skin. He had never been so thoroughly defeated, had never felt so helpless. "This is impossible," he whispered. "It is the result of proper training and discipline," Lisa replied. 2 things that should be familiar to any military officer. The general's eyes widened as he realized what she was saying. She was not just defending her actions, she was criticizing his. This human cadet was suggesting that he, a veteran warrior who had trained thousands of cadets, lacked proper discipline. "You will pay for this," he snarled, though his voice lacked its usual power. "You will be expelled from this academy. You will be banned from ever serving in the Galactic Defense Force. Your entire species will suffer for your actions." Lisa looked down at him calmly. "Perhaps, but that will be decided by proper authorities through proper channels, not by an officer who attacks unarmed cadets." The truth of her words hit him like a second blow. The security cameras in the chamber had recorded everything. There would be an investigation. Questions would be asked. His reputation, his career, his entire understanding of the natural order, all of it was suddenly in jeopardy, not as if summoned by his thoughts. The chamber's emergency alarm began to sound. The general's communicator had automatically activated. When his vital signs indicated severe injury, medical personnel would be arriving within minutes. "When they ask what happened," Lisa said, "I will tell them the truth. You struck a cadet without authorization. I defended myself using minimal, necessary force. The security footage will confirm this." General Vorthic stared at her in amazement. Even now, with his career in ruins and his body broken, she was not gloating. She was simply stating facts. There was no anger in her voice, no satisfaction at his defeat. She had done what she needed to do, and nothing more. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Why did you not just submit? Why did you not accept your place?" Lisa considered the question seriously. "Because submission to injustice is not strength, General. It is weakness. And humans may be many things, but we are not weak. The medical team arrived to find General Vorthik on his knees, clutching his shattered wrist, while Lisa stood at attention nearby. The contrast between them told the story more clearly than any words could dot as the medics worked to stabilize the general's injury. Lisa remained in the chamber to answer questions. She told the truth simply and clearly, without embellishment or excuse. She had defended herself against an unprovoked attack by a superior officer. Nothing more, nothing less. But as news of the incident spread through the academy, everyone knew that something fundamental had changed. The natural order that General Vorthik had spoken of so confidently was not as solid as he had believed. A human had not just survived his corrective instruction, she had turned it into a lesson of her own. The question now was what would happen next. Would the Academy's leadership support their general or their cadet? Would justice be served, or would politics determine the outcome? Lisa did not know the answers to these questions. But she knew one thing for certain. She had done what was right, regardless of the consequences. And sometimes that was enough. The emergency medical team worked quickly to stabilize General Vorthik's shattered wrist. The lead medic, a tall, blue-skinned Zephyrian named Dr. Kess, examined the injury with professional efficiency. Her scanner beeped as it analyzed the damage. 4 clean breaks, she reported to her team. The bones were snapped with surgical precision. This was not a random injury. General Vorthik glared at Lisa through his pain. She attacked me without warning. This human is dangerous and should be removed from the academy immediately. Dr. Kess looked between the general and Lisa, her large eyes taking in the scene. The security footage will tell us exactly what happened, she said calmly. Until then, both of you will need to give statements to the investigation team. As the medical team prepared to move the general to the hospital wing, he grabbed Dr. Kess's arm with his good hand. You must understand, he said urgently. If humans can do this to a Xanthari general, what does that mean for the rest of us? They are more dangerous than we thought. Lisa heard his words, but said nothing. She stood at attention, waiting for whatever would come next. Her roommate Zixthara had taught her that in crisis situations, the wisest course was often to remain silent and let others reveal their true nature. Within an hour, news of the incident had spread throughout the academy. The story grew with each telling, becoming more dramatic and unbelievable. Some cadets whispered that the human had used a hidden weapon. Others claimed she had some kind of special training that made her superhuman. Jake Miller found Lisa in the hallway outside the medical wing, where she was waiting to be questioned. Is it true? He asked. Did you really break General Vorthik's wrist? I defended myself when he attacked me, Lisa replied simply. That is all. But everyone is saying you moved so fast that no one could see what happened. They are saying you have some kind of secret human fighting technique. Lisa shook her head. I used basic defensive moves that any properly trained person would know. Nothing secret about it. Amy Foster and Mike Davis arrived, both looking worried. Lisa, what is going to happen to you? Amy asked. What is going to happen to all of us? I do not know, Lisa admitted. But whatever happens, we will face it together. The investigation began immediately. Admiral Vises, the Academy's Zephyrian commandant, took personal control of the case. Unlike General Vorthik, Admiral Vises was known for being fair and thorough. Her species valued logic and evidence over emotion and prejudice. Admiral Vises was a smaller being than the general, standing only 6 feet tall with pale blue skin and large, intelligent eyes. She wore the simple uniform of her rank, without decoration or ceremony. Her reputation throughout the galaxy was built on her ability to find the truth, no matter how uncomfortable that truth might be. Cadet Martinez, she said as Lisa entered. The investigation room. Please sit down and tell me exactly what happened in General Vorthik's chamber. Lisa told her story clearly and completely. She explained how the general had called her to his private chamber, how he had criticized her victory over the Krillian cadet, and how he had struck her without warning. She described her defensive response and the resulting injury to his wrist. "You showed remarkable control," Admiral Dyes observed. "Your response was precisely calibrated to stop the threat without causing unnecessary damage." "I was taught to use only the minimum force necessary," Lisa replied. "Anything more would have been wrong." Admiral Dyes made notes on her electronic pad. "Tell me about your training background. How did you learn to defend yourself so effectively?" Lisa explained her childhood training in martial arts, her military family background, and her years of study in various fighting techniques. She emphasized that her abilities were not supernatural or secret. They were simply the result of proper training and discipline. "Interesting," the Admiral mused. "Your training emphasizes adapting to different opponents and situations. This is quite different from the Xanthari approach, which relies on overwhelming force." The Admiral then called in other witnesses. The medical team testified about the precise nature of the general's injuries. The security footage was analyzed frame by frame. Other cadets were interviewed about the general's training methods and attitude toward humans. What emerged from the investigation was a picture that disturbed Admiral Dyes greatly. General Vorthik had a long history of what he called corrective instruction. Dozens of cadets from various species had been subjected to his violent disciplinary methods over the years. Cadet Zixthara, Lisa's timid roommate, was among those who came forward. With trembling voice, she described incidents where the general had struck cadets for minor infractions. She told of broken bones, hospital visits, and cadets who had quit the academy rather than endure more abuse. "Why did none of you report this behavior?" Admiral Dyes asked. Zixthara looked down at her hands. "He said it was normal military discipline. He said we were weak if we could not handle it. He said complaining would only make things worse." Similar stories emerged from cadets of different species. The general had created a culture of fear where his victims were convinced that the abuse was their fault. He had used his position and reputation to silence anyone who might question his methods. The investigation also revealed something else. Lisa's response had been remarkable not for its violence, but for its restraint. Analysis of the security footage showed that she could have inflicted far more damage, but had chosen not to. She had disabled the threat without unnecessary cruelty. Most beings with her level of skill would have broken multiple bones, testified Dr. Kess. She could have crippled him permanently or even killed him. Instead, she chose the minimum force necessary to stop his attack. Meanwhile, the political implications of the incident were spreading beyond the academy. News of a human cadet defeating a Xanthari general traveled quickly through diplomatic channels. Some species saw it as proof that humans were too dangerous to be trusted. Others viewed it as evidence that the old assumptions about species hierarchy were wrong. Back on Earth, government officials were watching the situation carefully. The human exchange program was crucial to Earth's acceptance into the galactic community. If Lisa was found guilty of assault, it could end humanity's chances of joining the Galactic Defense Force. But there were also those who saw the incident differently. Species that had suffered under Xanthari domination for generations began to whisper among themselves. If a human could stand up to a Xanthari general, what did that mean for the future balance of power? General Vorthik, meanwhile, was recovering in the medical wing with his wrist encased in a regenerative healing device. The physical damage would heal, but the damage to his reputation and worldview was permanent. He had built his entire identity around being the strongest, most feared warrior in the academy. Now everyone knew that a human cadet had defeated him in seconds. "This changes everything," he said to his aide, a younger Xanthari officer named Captain Breck. If humans can do this, if they can challenge our authority, then the natural order of things is in question. Captain Breck was less concerned with philosophy than with practical matters. Sir, the investigation is not going well. The footage clearly shows you striking first. The other cadets are coming forward with stories about your training methods. My training methods have produced the finest warriors in the galaxy, General Vorthik growled. Perhaps, Captain Breck replied carefully, but they may also have produced the evidence that will end your career. The general fell silent, staring at the ceiling of his hospital room. For the first time in his life, he was beginning to understand that strength and brutality were not the same thing. The human cadet had shown him a different kind of strength. The strength to stand up for what was right, even when facing overwhelming odds. As the investigation continued, Lisa found herself in an unusual position. Some cadets avoided her, afraid of being associated with someone who had attacked a general. Others sought her out, curious about the human who had done the impossible. "How did you stay so calm?" asked Krieg, her fish-like roommate. "If General Vorthik had attacked me, I would have been too scared to move." Lisa thought about the question. "Fear is natural," she said, "but letting fear control your actions is a choice. I chose to respond with training instead of emotion." Unit 47, the synthetic being who shared their room, spoke in his mechanical voice. "Your response time was 0.3 seconds from initial attack to counteraction. This suggests prior planning or exceptional reflexes. I had studied Xanthari anatomy and fighting patterns," Lisa admitted. "I knew that if he attacked, he would likely use a dominant hand strike. I prepared for that possibility." "You mean you were ready for him to hit you?" Zixthara asked in amazement. "I was ready for him to try," Lisa corrected. "There is a difference." 3 days after the incident, Admiral Vises called Lisa back to the investigation room. This time, the Admiral's expression was grave, but not unfriendly. "Cadet Martinez," she began, "I have completed my investigation. The evidence is clear that General Vorthik initiated physical contact without authorization. Your response was proportional and restrained. However, the situation is complicated by political factors." Lisa waited silently for the Admiral to continue. "There are those in the galactic community who believe this incident proves that humans are too Dan." The court-martial chamber was the largest room Lisa had ever seen. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive space, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. The air hummed with translation devices. Working in dozens of languages, as beings from across the galaxy gathered to witness this historic trial, Lisa sat at the defendant's table wearing her academy uniform, her back straight and her hands folded calmly in her lap. Next to her sat Commander Helen Brooks, a retired Earth military lawyer who had been hastily assigned as her legal counsel. Commander Brooks was a tough woman with gray hair and intelligent eyes who had flown halfway across the galaxy to be here. "Remember," Commander Brooks whispered, "tell the truth simply and clearly. Do not let them make you angry, no matter what they say." Across the chamber, General Vorthik sat with his legal team. His wrist was still encased in a healing device, and his eyes burned with anger and humiliation. He had demanded this court-martial, confident that the military justice system would vindicate him and punish the human who had dared to attack him. The panel of judges consisted of 5 officers from different species. Admiral Dyes represented the Zephyrians. General Corinth spoke for the Draconian Empire. Commander Flux represented the Synthetic Alliance. Captain Veltar stood for the Aquatic Territories. And Colonel Sean represented the Mollusk Collective. Each judge brought their own perspective and prejudices to the case. Some believed strongly in military hierarchy and discipline. Others valued justice and individual rights. All of them understood that their decision would shape the future of galactic military cooperation. Admiral Vyses called the court to order. We are here to determine the facts surrounding an incident between General Vorthik of the Xanthari Empire and Cadet Lisa Martinez of Earth. The charges are assault on a superior officer and conduct unbecoming a military cadet. The prosecution began their case with confidence. Major Ziegther, a Xanthari lawyer with scarred armor and cold eyes, painted Lisa as a dangerous individual who had used excessive force against a respected general. General Vorthik was conducting routine disciplinary instruction, Major Ziegther declared. This is a time-honored tradition in military training. Cadet Martinez responded with unprovoked violence that resulted in serious injury to a superior officer. Major Ziegther showed holographic displays of General Vorthik's injuries, emphasizing the precise nature of the breaks and the skill required to inflict such damage. He argued that Lisa's response was calculated and excessive, proving that humans were too dangerous to be trusted in military service. The defendant claimed self-defense, Major Ziegther continued, but her actions show premeditation and deliberate intent to harm. She studied Xanthari anatomy for the specific purpose of causing injury. This was not defense. It was assault. When it came time for the defense to present their case, Commander Brooks stood slowly and looked at each judge in turn. The prosecution would have you believe that this case is about military discipline and proper respect for authority, she began. They are wrong. This case is about the difference between leadership and abuse, between strength and brutality, between justice and oppression. Commander Brooks activated the security footage from General Vorthik's chamber, playing it in slow motion for all to see. The recording clearly showed the general striking first, his massive hand sweeping down toward Lisa's face with obvious intent to cause harm. Cadet Martinez had 0.3 seconds to make a choice, Commander Brooks explained. She could submit to an illegal assault, or she could defend herself. She chose to defend herself using the minimum force necessary to stop the attack. The defense then called their first witness, Dr. Kess, the Zephyrian medic who had treated General Vorthik's injury. In your professional opinion, Commander Brooks asked, could Cadet Martinez have caused more severe injuries if she had chosen to? Dr. Kess consulted her medical scanner. Absolutely. Her positioning and technique could have resulted in permanent disability or even death. Instead, she chose to target a non-vital area that would heal completely with proper treatment. What does this suggest about her intent? It suggests she wanted to stop the attack, not to cause unnecessary harm. This is consistent with defensive action, not assault. The next witness surprised everyone. Cadet Zixthara approached the witness stand with obvious fear, her tentacles trembling as she looked at General Vorthik. But when she began to speak, her voice was clear and steady. General Vorthik called me to his chamber 6 months ago, she said. I had failed a navigation test, and he said I needed corrective instruction. He struck me across the face with enough force to crack my shell. When I cried, he struck me again and said that weakness was not tolerated in his academy. A murmur ran through the courtroom. This was the first time anyone had publicly accused the general of abuse. Why did you not report this incident? Commander Brooks asked gently. He said it was normal military training. He said my species was naturally weak and needed harsh treatment to become strong. He said if I complained, he would ensure I was expelled for being unfit for service. More witnesses came forward. Krieg testified about similar abuse he had suffered. Unit 47 provided detailed recordings of incidents he had observed. Even some non-human cadets from traditionally strong species admitted they had witnessed or experienced the general's violent methods. How many incidents are we talking about? Admiral Vyses asked during a recess. At least 40 documented cases over the past 5 years, Commander Brooks replied. possibly more that have not been reported. General Vorthic's defense team tried to portray these incidents as necessary military discipline. They argued that different species required different training methods, and that what seemed harsh to some might be appropriate for others. But when General Vorthic himself took the stand, his arrogance worked against him. "These cadets are weak," he declared. "They come from species that have never known real war, real hardship. They need to be broken down and rebuilt into something useful. My methods have produced warriors who have served the galaxy with distinction." "And what about Cadet Martinez?" Major Ziegler asked. "She is particularly dangerous because she refuses to accept her place in the natural order. Humans are a primitive species, but they have a capacity for violence that makes them unsuitable for civilized military service." Commander Brooks stood for cross-examination. "General, you said that humans are primitive. Yet Cadet Martinez defeated you in 4 seconds using techniques you had never encountered. What does this suggest about human capabilities?" General Vorthic's mandibles clicked angrily. "It suggests they are more dangerous than we initially believed. Or perhaps it suggests that your understanding of strength and military effectiveness is incomplete. I have commanded warriors for 30 years. And in those 30 years, how many cadets have you personally struck outside of authorized combat training?" The general hesitated. "Military discipline sometimes requires physical correction. That is not what I asked. How many cadets have you struck in your private chamber under the guise of corrective instruction?" "I do not keep count of disciplinary actions." Commander Brooks activated a holographic display showing medical records from the Academy's hospital. "The medical staff kept count, General. 43 cadets treated for injuries sustained during private meetings with you. Broken bones, concussions, internal injuries. Is this your idea of proper military discipline?" The courtroom fell silent as the implication sank in. General Vorthic had not been conducting military training. He had been systematically abusing cadets under his command. When Lisa finally took the stand, she spoke with the same calm confidence she had shown throughout the trial. "I did not want to hurt General Vorthic," she said. "I wanted to stop him from hurting me. When he struck at my face, I had to make a choice in a fraction of a second. I chose to defend myself using the least amount of force necessary." "Why did you study Xanthari anatomy?" the prosecutor asked during cross-examination. "I study the anatomy and fighting styles of all species at the Academy. It helps me understand how to work with them effectively and how to defend myself if necessary." "You were planning to attack the general?" "I was preparing for the possibility that someone might attack me. Unfortunately, I was right to be prepared." "Do you feel any remorse for your actions?" Lisa considered the question carefully. "I regret that the situation occurred. I regret that General Vorthic felt the need to use violence to make his point. I regret that other cadets have suffered similar abuse. But I do not regret defending myself against an illegal assault." The closing arguments lasted for hours. The prosecution maintained that military discipline required respect for authority, even when that authority was harsh. The defense argued that true military discipline required leaders to earn respect through their actions, not demand it through fear. When the judges retired to deliberate, the courtroom buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of worlds waited to see which vision of military service would prevail. After 6 hours, the judges returned. Admiral Vises stood to deliver the verdict. "This court finds Cadet Lisa Martinez not guilty of all charges," she announced. "The evidence clearly shows that she acted in lawful self-defense against an unprovoked assault." The courtroom